Hey everybody, it's Mr. Fabek here again. We're talking about viruses and bacteria again. So we're going to talk a little bit more about kind of what gets you sick. So maybe we'll get kind of touch again on some viruses of zombies. What does it look like? How does it really infect us? How do these things spread so quickly through a population? So really, again, think back of when you were sick and you want to ask yourself, was it viral or bacterial? Okay, so let's go through and kind of think about that. So today's goals, you want to be able to explain how a virus and bacteria reproduce, be able to explain how diseases are spread, and explain how to prevent or treat that infection, okay? So, here we go. Pretty gross video that they did on Mythbusters, but I wanted to bring it in so you can kind of see in slow motion how far that virus might spread, or bacterial. So, a virus and bacteria are microscopic particles, and so they're really light. So when you sneeze them out, that's the whole purpose of sneezing, right, is to try and eject this material out of you. It can spread pretty far. Look at that. It's about 2 feet right there. We could think about just traveling through the air, water, blood, bloodborne pathogens. Vectors is one that people may not be too familiar with, but that's animals that spread disease. So mosquitoes, rodents, bats, all that kind of stuff can also, through a bite or just by coming in contact or contaminating your water supply, perhaps. Just basic contact, high-fiving, shaking hands, sharing pens, or let's say sharing a can of Coke or something like that. And sexual contact, which you're probably familiar with in your health classes, all those STDs and STIs, is another one of how these things can just spread throughout the population. So, thinking about that, oh, God, I'm sorry. I probably should have warned you, but pink eye is one of those gross things that sometimes spread throughout a school. And there's 2 forms of this conjunctivitis. It's viral pink eye, which you can see it gives you that really watery eye. It's more red and irritated. And then we have, oh God, the bacterial pink eye. And this is where it gets kind of gross because you can see there's more of that pus, more of that white trapping material, if you will. I sometimes can't even look at this screen. But this is where we can really, and doctors look at how do we treat it. So something that might be even serious for you or more familiar is a sore throat. A common sore throat like strep throat, which we talked about in a different video, is bacterial. So how do we know that? Well, if you look side by side, this is a great diagram to show you that viral, usually you have the back of your throat, right? Those tonsils, that's what your mom's always like, oh, let me feel your tonsils to see if they're all swollen, okay? So if they're enlarged and red, generally that's more viral to have that red throat, that soreness there. But when you start to see things like those white spots on your tongue as well as in the back of your throat, then we're talking more bacterial infections. And so that can help us diagnose which treatment method we want to go with. So just to remind us, a virus, it's microscopic, but they have their DNA, and they're surrounded by what's called a protein coat. And so this protein coat, this capsid, allows the virus to enter the host cell. So what it does is it'll help it bind to different receptors within the cell membrane. And if they have the correct match, they're able to enter in there. So this is, again, why they're really highly specific. So plant viruses are really only going to affect plant cells. And so over time, these viruses have changed to help match them with their host. So again, here's a couple different ones. It looks like I accidentally cut out the crystal one there on the bottom, which is what that viral pink eye is. But you can see, again, it's that protein coat, those little nubs kind of sticking out, are what help them get into the cell. Okay, that's what is infecting them. And once they're inside, we have 2 different ways that they can infect. So a viral infection could be lytic or lysogenic in its life cycle. So with the lytic cycle, and I'll show you a picture in just a minute. So again, you might want to just pause here and maybe space it out so you have a picture to use. But basically, the lytic one is really simple. It enters the cell, it makes copies of itself with using the materials of the host cell, and then it causes the cell to burst so it can spread throughout and find new host cells. The lysogenic one is the one that's really interesting and kind of really hard to to control, because that one is where the virus enters or integrates its DNA into the host cell DNA and then replicates it along with the host cell. So this viral DNA that we get embedded into the host DNA is called prophage. And so just to give you a visual, this is kind of both of them side by side. So we start here at the center. Sorry, I thought it was a touch screen. I was like, oh, whoops, there we go. We start at the center here where our virus is going to inject its DNA. And then once that phage enters, it could go two ways. So the prophage can infect the host cell DNA, and in this case, this is a bacterial cell it's infecting, right? Bacteriophage, if we look at our shape. But then when it's in there, you can see it just copied along with it, so that it makes extra copies of itself. Now, from here, it could then enter the lytic cycle. And so from the lytic cycle, it's going to enter in there and digest or chop up using maybe some enzymes to break up that DNA to make more parts for itself and eventually burst throughout. So you could either start in this cycle or it could end up going in this cycle as well. And so this is where things get complicated, because you have to think about how do you treat it, and you're destroying cells in the process, or how do we stop just the replication of it? So that's what's really puzzling, and that's what kind of gets to be the struggle for doctors trying to come up with cures and vaccines and all that. Bacteria, we have a couple different ways. Since bacteria are considered living and they have those living components with using energy, growing and dividing, all that stuff. The first way we can divide with bacteria, again, this is bacteria, is binary fission. Binary means two and fission means to split. So when we're looking at the first cell there, we had one cell, and then we're slowly kind of splitting and making an exact copy of itself. So essentially it's doing asexual reproduction. There's no exchange or recombination of any genetic material. It's a pure clone of itself. Conjugation. There we go. Conjugation is an exchange of genetic material. So you can kind of see in the picture here, they kind of shoot this little arrow across, essentially. Boo! And this is a hollow tube. And then from here, they're able to exchange genetic material. And so here's the problem. If you're exchanging genetic material, you have to think about it as a Darwin idea, and this idea of evolution, where it's hopefully getting some different genes, and just like you don't look exactly like your parents, and then over time humans have developed things that make them more fit for their environment. This is what can cause bacteria to be really hard to treat, because this is how they can also change within your body and make them a little bit more troublesome when treating with antibiotics. The other one that's kind of interesting, remember I talked about that idea of contact being using just basically touching an object that may have some sort of bacterial growth on it. One idea is a spore formation. So if they're in an environment where things are not favorable for them, they create what's called an endospore. And that spore has its DNA and some of the cytoplasm there, and then it'll remain dormant or just kind of unactive for years until it starts to become favorable. And once it's favorable, then it starts to go through some of those other ones like binary fission to start replicating over and over again. So, treatment. Nothing too crazy. Looking at a virus, you can prevent it with good hygiene and cleaning, but also vaccines. And if you're unfamiliar, it's that bottom picture there with the needle and shot. Everyone's had to do vaccines to get into public schools, right? Some people are against them. There's a whole debate out there. I'll leave that for you and your research. But a vaccine is a shot that essentially includes a small form of the virus that your immune system can kill. And then our immune system then will be able to recognize that shape and those proteins that are associated with it so that it can target the virus later if it comes into your system. So like a common one would be like the flu vaccine. Every year the flu slowly changes, and so we get a new shot, some of us, and this can help us target what those new flu viruses look like so that if they get in us, we can start our personal treatment right away. There are some antiviral medications, but we won't get into that. Some of them, there's a debate if they're really that effective or not. So really, whenever you go to the doctor for just like a basic common cold or something, or even that viral pink eye, home remedies or just kind of muscling it out there, having that nice bowl of pho or a nice cup of tea and lots of sleep is what really helps your body get rid of the virus. But bacteria, I know it sounds weird, this is what you kind of want to hear at the doctor, that it's a bacterial infection, because with bacterial infections, you could have prevented it with good hygiene and just general cleaning, but this is where we treat with antibiotics. So remember, anti is against and bio refers to life, so we're using medication that is targeting these living cells, these prokaryotes, these bacteria. And so, like Dr. Mario throwing a pill, we're going to throw a pill at you, and that's going to target the cell wall of the bacteria cell. And so this is why it won't affect you and won't hurt you, because you are an animal cell and you don't have a cell wall, but bacteria cells do, and so it can target those cell walls and destroy them. So I know it sounds weird, but again, that's what you kind of want to hear, so you can kind of get better faster. However, then you have to think about this idea of antibiotics, and is it good to keep taking them? Because we have good bacteria in our gut, and they'll also get harmed in the process. So lots of cool stuff out there. Lots of debates. I really encourage you to go try some of those out. So here's how we're going to check for mastery today. So I gave you a few different options. So you could summarize the information in a paragraph like a Dear Future Me letter. And so this can help you maybe before a test, or just kind of something to read real quickly before you're studying. Write a letter to your school telling them how a virus or bacteria are spread and what they could do to prevent it. Okay, so maybe thinking about including in your letter something about the life cycle and how we could stop these viruses and bacteria from infecting us. You can make a Venn diagram, right? Circle the two circles, compare and contrast. What's the same, what's different? Think about other things besides just the life cycles that we talked about and how they're spread. But maybe you even incorporate some of the stuff from the other video about shapes and features and all that. And I challenge you this time to find out about antibiotic resistance. How does this complicate the treatment? So what is that, and why is that being such a big debate so far in our community? So thank you very much. If you have questions, let me know. Shoot me an email. And don't forget to spread the video with hashtag Fabiology. And we'll get this whole Fabiology business running throughout the entire world. We'll spread it just like a virus and make it infectious. So thanks, everybody. Talk to you later. Good luck studying.